Here's what you're admitting when you don't develop your talent. You're admitting you don't expect people to hang around very long. You're admitting you're willing to let people just figure crap out on the job, no matter how long it takes or how many mistakes get made. You're admitting that there's nothing special about the work you do. Any schmo off the street can just jump in and deliver on day one. You're admitting that you're unaware of the cost of people figuring out crap on the job, or the cost of high turnover, or the cost of having an undifferentiated commoditized work product. And you're admitting that any message you have on your site or internally around building a strong culture is performative BS. Karen Crane knows a thing or 50 about talent development. She is a coach and talent consultant who spent years helping ad agencies build award-winning teams. And she and I share a frustration that so many agencies fall short in this area. Fuck around and find out seems to be the most popular training methodology around. And it's a damn shame because the industry is filled with smart, clever problem solvers who are capable of designing 1,000 ways to help people grow in their careers. But we're too busy. It's too expensive. Clients are so demanding. Blah, blah, blah. Sure. Yes. Understood. Those are the exact reasons you need to do it. So you're less busy on nonsense work and focused more on the work that matters. So you get paid more because you work on higher value projects. So your clients are happier because your teams are delivering work at a level they never even thought was possible. That's what happens when you develop your talent. Admit it. It sounds totally worth it, right? Welcome to the DesuckifyWork podcast, the show where we cut through the BS and find ways to make work more fun, more human, and less ridiculous. All of which makes your business more profitable, by the way. If you enjoy this one, please like, share, rate, review, or subscribe to the podcast. Let the desuckifying begin. Here's Karen. Okay, Karen Crane, welcome to the DesuckifyWork podcast.
Thank you for having me, TJ. Yeah. It's lovely to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming. I'm excited to dive into a bit of your experience, and you work in the world of advertising, much like I did for many years. So I'm sure we'll have some war stories to trade there as well. But
totally.
Before we get too far in, just we'll give you a second to talk about what you do currently and how you came to be doing it.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm Karen Crane. I am an executive coach. Prior to becoming certified as a coach, I worked within advertising, as you mentioned, with agencies like, Gray, DDB, 60i, and really, kind of leading the creative talent and creative operations, kind of departments, mechanisms within those agencies that help set up transformational success in terms of, financial new business growth, transformational success creatively. And, I know that sounds a little convoluted or big, right? But really what that means is helping kind of set the leadership and set the creative team up set them up for success. What did they need? What kind of staffing did we need? What kind of new business growth was happening? How do we get those systems set up to really support the agency? And what that means in terms of the approach that I take in coaching, it's really very similar, right? It's really about, helping people, very brilliant people, sometimes get unblocked, get in touch with what is getting in their own way and free themselves up to become successful, right? Yeah. So because of all those years that I worked within advertising, I think a lot of my clients will call me a creative whisperer, right? So, it's kind of shorthand when it comes to working with creatives and creative staff. So yeah, I'm very happy to be working with organizations and creatives, one-to-one leadership teams and creatives, to help them kind of, again, transform and be the leader that they envision themselves to be when they had this vision of them becoming, who they are today. Yeah. There's a couple of initiatives I'm really proud of that I created also with the One Club. There's something called Coaching for Creativity that I founded. And then also an initiative called Brunch Time Stories, which is really focused more on female leaders
Okay.
exclusively. So, leadership can be lonely and it really doesn't have to be, right? So
Yeah.
building community is, as we know, one of the other elements of success, right?
Yeah.
So these initiatives have been so rewarding and really helpful in terms of helping support the communities of people that I work with.
Yeah. No, I love that point that leadership can be lonely, right? I don't think you realize it until you're in it sometimes,
Yeah.
and suddenly you realize, oh, I can't quite talk to people the same way I used to because I'm in a position of power. And that, if I share certain things, am I dumping on them? Am I putting weight on them that I shouldn't be? Plus, like internally, you might be like, well, they may not fully understand what I'm going through. And then the other way, like if you're a creative director or, and you want to talk to your boss, you're like, well, I don't want to like really look like I don't know what I'm doing.
What I'm doing. Yeah.
So it does get a little lonely. And so I what you're talking about and bringing people together to share, particularly when you can share with peers or just somebody who gets it, it feels like that makes a big difference because you can feel like the weight of the world's on your shoulders sometimes,
It can. Yeah. And knowing that you are kind of in a community of people not only like-minded, but like experienced people who are experiencing a similar lived experience. That community is so incredible.
Yeah.
And it really is supporting people and their own endeavors. And to your point about, those thoughts about, okay, well, I can't be real because if I'm real and I say that I'm, frustrated or, upset with, a campaign that we were just working on, if I share that with my teams, I'm going to look like, I'm being too much like, too real or too authentic. And I think, there's a lot to just, being a leader who is very open-hearted
Mm-hmm.
and that vulnerability, to lead with an open heart and lead from that place of strength. It's a muscle memory that really needs to be built, right? One thing about our industry, there's so many great things about advertising.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that we are not great about promoting people and giving them tools and helping them learn the tools that they need to really be a successful leader that people want to follow, right?
Yeah, I agree.
So I think that this community also, helps kind of foster that, right? Because you can be safe.
Yeah.
For people to really share and be authentic. And then also, kind of bring that back, be comfortable hearing themselves say the things that they were kind of only thinking they maybe didn't even want to know themselves. Right?
Yeah, well, that's true, right? You can, once you say it, it's real. And now I'm really acknowledging like, I'm uncertain about this thing, or I'm worried about this thing, or I actually just don't know what I'm doing here or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And think back to when you were, on the other side of it, right?
Yeah.
Not as a creative director, but as the team,
Yeah.
as the director, copywriter, designer, strategist, account person, whomever it was.
Yeah.
When you had a leader get up there and say, look, this is really hard. We're going through a rough patch. Or, like, look, this died, or we didn't win the pitch, or whatever, or this business is leaving, but we're gonna, weather the storm together, and we want to hear from you.
Yeah.
How do you feel? I think, the bringing in and fostering that dialogue, I think, is so important. And again, the community, an organization is a community.
Yeah.
And do you support that community best? Leading from an open place and an authentic place, I think, is really key.
Yeah, I would agree. There's something else you mentioned earlier that was interesting to me. You started talking about, the work you did, and you talked about it being like sounding very high-minded or whatever, and then you kind of get into the more nitty-gritty of it. And I think there are these two pieces to it, right? There is the very like nitty-gritty of, finding good people, helping them, making sure that they are both qualified for the work, but also ready to jump in and support the team in the way you want to. But then there's this sort of more strategic view of hiring and talent. And I feel like that's really invisible to a lot of folks who are not from the experience you have, meaning
That's so interesting. Yeah.
like as a creative director, it's like, I need to hire somebody. That's what's on my mind, right? I don't necessarily have the full picture of hiring as a strategic endeavor. And the idea that like, we're not just plugging people into open spots on the organizational chart, but there's actually thought behind it. What kinds of thinking goes into that strategic side of it that maybe a lot of us don't know about?
Such a good question. So the strategic thinking behind hiring and talent, talent acquisition, talent management, all of it, it's I think just, in any other strategic kind of exercise, the same rules apply in that you want to try to be like 5 steps ahead, right? So yes, how often did I sit across from a CCO or a creative director, executive creative director, or CEO who said, look, we have 10 open positions and we're not fulfilling our responsibilities to our clients, and we have a new business pitch coming up, and all the things. So, get the butts in the seats and get it done quickly. It's like, well, there has to be some more thought to it, because look, I'm going to tell you, the open position that we have here is for this level, but I've met 3 teams, or, I've met 3 people at this other level, either, bigger, higher level, or, maybe a little bit more junior. But I'll tell you, let's do it this way. Here's my thought.
Yeah.
And here's what I think we should do, given what we've got, given the people that I've just met. They don't fit exactly in this box.
Yeah.
But that's not why you have me. I'm here to tell you the 3 other times that I've done this, and we've either condensed roles or stretched a little, went above budget a bit.
Yeah.
It's paid off, exponentially. And that, look, I'm giving you an example conversation of one element, right? That you can have the same conversation and the same thought process about, taking a couple of steps back. And it's very similar to coaching in many, many ways, which is why I think the transition for me was a very easy transition, because look, you're a strategic partner, right? The thing that you're looking at is a thing. It's not to say that it's not real.
Sure.
And what's really going on here? And what opportunity, what can we envision from this moment? Because it's about the thing, but it's also about the thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny as you describe that. It reminds me of, I don't know, there's certain software tools like I'm thinking Figma and some others where you can like really zoom in on like one piece of creative on this thing, but then you can zoom back out and you can see how it relates to the full campaign and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's exactly what you're talking about, right? Whether it's the talent thing and you're like, okay, we're talking about this ECD role, but how is this ECD going to connect to the head of account over here and the head of strategy and all of that stuff?
And how do they fit within the ecosystem? And what is it going to be in 3 months? Because, by the way, we also had a conversation last week about this, team or piece of business that is a little rocky. So, is this an opportunity to kind of, tweak here so that if this goes south, we've got a built-in plan. It's all about strategy and a little bit of Jenga and Tetris and all the things, right? I mean, seriously. And it's so interesting too that you brought up hiring and talent, right? Because also, like, a lot of the clients that I work with are going through either a situation where they are interviewing for a job, or they're in a situation where they feel like the job that they have is not working for them anymore. I worked with a creative director, art director, who, we did, coaching can get sometimes a little woo-woo. I don't go too woo-woo, but a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm here for it, right? But like, it really is up to my client.
I get it. Yeah.
So, but this client was in for it. She was all for it. So we did like a little bit of a visioning, exercise. And, we kind of went through our exercise, did a little breathing. It's kind of a meditative process. Coming out of it, what she was able to do with that as a creative leader sit and plot in AI her storyboard of the vision that we were kind of just on. And what was so interesting was as she was going through and working through this process that she was in and getting a new job, finding a new job, we were able to plot out on her vision framing where she was in the process, right? And it doesn't mean we literally followed the board, but as we continue coaching and things would come up, it'd be like, okay, look at what you're confronting right now. Where is that on the board? Right? And it was like, it was shorthand. She was like, yeah, right, of course. So it was amazing how it just was able to really help, like I said, create a shorthand in terms of, the process.
I find that really helpful. I mean, I do work as a coach too. And I think what you're describing is when a lot of folks show up to coaching, it's fuzzy. It's like, I'm unhappy, or maybe I'm sort of happy, but I know maybe I'm bored, or I'm a little lost, and to have something to guide you can be really helpful. For some people, that's going to be really rigid, like, I have 3 goals and I want to hit them and blah, blah, blah. And then others might go a little more woo, as you said, but that's their language, right? And you are speaking their language and you're giving them a way of like, okay, when we're talking about this every once in a while, where does that fit? Because otherwise, I think what happens and what's been probably going on in their head, and I know it goes on in my head sometimes, is it's just a swirl. You just keep going around. So I think those things help. And what you're describing also in the way you talk about your coaching and the way you talked about working with talent is just the ability to zoom out and see more, to me, feels like the very essence of seeing a person fully and seeing them as a human being.
Yeah.
It takes it away from being like, a very tactical experience of filling a role on an org chart or fixing that one problem. Like, oh, I'm feeling burnt out. Okay, you're feeling burnt out, but what's are you in that, and what's happening for you, right?
What's really going on here? Yeah. And of course, right, to your point, right, you're a coach, like, to your point, you're going to talk about that. It's not like it's not going to be part of the conversation, but it's how does that fit within the ecosystem of you as a person? Right? And it's interesting, a lot of times, I mentioned the One Club and Coaching for Creativity, and a lot of times my co-founder and I, Rob Schwartz, will kind of put up a slide and share with everyone, like, okay, here's the difference between, shorthand, therapy, mentoring, and coaching, right? Yeah. And therapy, it doesn't mean the coaching is not going to be therapeutic.
Yeah.
It can be a very therapeutic process, but you're not going to stay there. No, you're not going to stay in the past. You're not going to stay unpacking the past. It's not going to get clinical. It's not going to get diagnosis. None of that. Right? Yeah. Mentorship is really more about like, okay, when I was your, age, or when I was at your level, Mary Sue, we did X, Y, Z. So you go do what I just told you to do and then tell me how it went. Right? It's much more prescriptive, practical stuff. Whereas coaching, as you said, it's like you see the thing, but then you're able to really see it within an ecosystem.
Yeah. Yeah. And, the phrase I sometimes use, which maybe sounds a little woo, but it's like, who do you want to be, right? I mean, it's not just what do you want to do, but who do you want to be? And it just, that can reframe it for you, right? Like it almost brings you into the conversation where before you're observing yourself and going, I want to fix me. It's like, it's not quite that, or it doesn't have to be. I mean, it actually brings up something interesting because I read a post on Substack the other day from somebody who, it triggered me a little bit because they're like, I'm so sick of coaching. And then they went on this rant, but they were really ranting at like the sort of over optimization trend of like basically her take was, you keep telling me I'm broken and then you're giving me like 1,000 tasks a day to fix myself, right? Drink this, eat this, get 10 minutes of sunlight, get, whatever, touch grass, do like all the things, right? Like, and, if you're going to eat this, eat it this way. And like, count to 7 when you're lifting your weights and then count to 3 on the other. Like, and she was just expressing, I think, an exhaustion of like, I'm constantly trying to fix myself. And I don't think that's what coaching at least should be. But I'm curious to kind of get your take on that. Do you encounter people who are feeling the weight of like, I have to always be better? And then how do you help people maybe see a different path that doesn't feel quite so like oppressive?
It's such a good question. And I think that, let's just talk about like, okay, so I'm trying to fix myself. Well, who says you need to be fixed? And if you're listening to all this external dialogue and external, like it has to be X, Y, Z, says who, right? Like, what do you want? You said, right, just now, what do you want? Who do you want to be? And what do you need to do to be that person, that leader, that person, going into the room or leading the pitch or whatever the case may be, right? Yeah. So it's like, okay, well, why did, whomever this person was that was ranting, it does get overwhelming. If you're going to only listen to external, what that person need to feel fulfilled.
Yeah.
Don't define it by somebody else's standards. Define it for yourself, right? And that, I think, is what a good coach will do, right? It's not just about being tactical and saying, okay, come up with the goal, hit the goal, okay, just go make a list, like,
right.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I do think that there's a lot of talk about AI and how it's going to replace many jobs. And I think that, if you just want someone to kind of help you create a list and become a little bit more organized, that's where
AI is perfect.
At least right now, is really, really good.
Yeah.
But, the human connection, the community connection, that is not what AI provides, at least yet.
I know. I'm terrified of a world where it actually can provide that.
But yeah, it's like it's the connection and the ability to really help somebody see themselves as part of whatever, ecosystem they want to be. Who said, yeah, sure, it's great to go touch grass for 10 minutes, 7 minutes, whatever a day. But like, who says like, that it sounds like there's a little bit of a self-sabotage going on. I have to meet all these, and then what?
And then what, right?
What? Like, what?
Yeah. What did I do?
Okay, well, what's that?
Yeah.
Who's saying you have to be perfect?
Yeah.
Like, so.
Yeah. Wow. That's an interesting question, right? Because I think somewhere along the line, like a lot of us got the message that you did have to be perfect. And I would argue it starts in school, right? You get a gold star when you get 100 on a test, right? So, you get an 87 on a test and you get like, you could probably do better, and so
87 is good. I would be happy with it.
It is good, right? But like somebody's going to point at you and go like, I know you could get over a 90, right?
Well, okay.
And there's I feel like there's nothing inherently wrong with striving, but I think the message we all walk away with is I'm not good if I didn't get the high score, so to speak. So that's what it feels like people are looking at all this stuff and listening to the external voices. They become the new teachers and parents for us to kind of like tell us what to do so that we can be okay. And nowhere in the conversation for most of us is the just like literally like, who are you and who do you want to be? Like, I feel like for me, and I feel like a lot of my clients, it's like, it tends to happen like kind of 40-ish, but you kind of go, I've just been sort of steamrolling through life and I'm finally like wondering like, who the heck am I? And who do I want to be and what do I want the rest of this journey to be? And then you layer on top of that, you're in a particular role at work and it's like, it's a lot of pressure and we wonder why people get burnt out.
Exactly. Yeah. Look, a lot of times with coaching, as I'm sure with your clients, some of the upfront work is really unpacking, right? Like, again, it can be a very therapeutic process. It doesn't mean that you're going to stay in on the unpack, right? But
Yeah.
like sometimes you have to go through a little bit of that unpack to really get to what is really
Yeah.
going on,
Yeah.
and then once that's freed, you can really kind of, then get into the real massaging and muscle memory of these new skills, the skills that are just a little unfamiliar, right? It doesn't mean they weren't there.
Yeah.
I had a really great conversation with a client once. In fact, I think it was in the, because the who do you want to be, right?
Yeah.
Like be and the do, right? That's so
Yeah.
much part of coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I did say that to her at one point. Like I was like, okay, well, who do you have to become? I may have said that.
Yeah.
Who do you have to become to be in this role? She was like, I don't have to become anybody other than who I am. I'm just not used to it. I just have to get comfortable
Yeah.
being this other part of me. It feels so safe. It's what I know. I don't
Yeah.
know as much here.
Mm.
I just have to be okay with that, not being the perfectionist, not being perfect, not being, what have been told I have to be or what I think I have to be. I have to
Yeah.
just become comfortable. Sorry, I have to be comfortable with the uncomfortable and get
Yeah.
that. It's kind of like the gym, right? You're going to go, you're
Mm.
going to build new muscle memory, you're
Yeah.
going to build up these muscles. It's kind of like the gym for your brain. And there's so much neuroscience behind it, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not all woo-woo. There
It's
is a
not.
lot of
No.
neuro,
Yeah. Creating new
so pathways
neuroplasticity
and
and new connections and
exactly. Like it's
yeah.
they watched it on the monitors. They've seen the new neural pathways being formed.
Yeah. It's interesting the gym metaphor because it's like I think like if I spent my whole time at the gym lifting weights and then I'm like, I want to train for a marathon. It's like I might think, well, why is this so hard? I've been working out my whole life, but like it's different muscles, it's different things, right? And that's kind of like, I think about the journey, I worked as a creative before I became a coach. So I was a writer and a creative director, right? So, and that transition from creative to creative leader, I feel like is one of the hardest leaps to make because you are so invested in being a creative and your identity is wrapped up in it. And those muscles are so well trained and you are just constantly like, you can't turn that off. So you're walking around 24 hours a day, exercising those muscles. Mm-hmm. And then one day it's like, you're basically being told like, you don't really need to exercise those muscles. What you need to do is remember them and occasionally exercise them, but you have a whole bunch of new muscles you have to exercise now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're not simply, I don't know this. You're like, well, who the heck am I? Like, and this is what I think is a struggle for a lot of creatives becomes we want to sort of micromanage and still sort of own and push the work instead of trying to pull and lift it out of people. And that's such a different skill set, not to mention all the skill sets of like being good at working with other teams and you can kind of be the crusty creative when you're just, a writer or an art director and you can kind of be like, I hate when you push back on my work, but like you have to learn some new skills of like, diplomacy mixed with persuasiveness, like that becomes new. I mean, what do you see when you're working with clients? I noticed you did like a whole thing with like ACDs, and that's like right in that sweet spot.
It's so funny that you brought that up.
Yeah, like what are you seeing them experience, and what seems to help them realize they can build some of those new muscles?
Yeah, I mean, it's like one of my favorite topics because, helping, again, organizations and teams within organizations really get set up truly for success. And I think some of that is the clarity. Mm-hmm. And like you got to start with the clarity of what it really means to be, a creative director.
Yeah.
What does that even mean? Yeah. Right? And what do you let go of and what do you need to learn as a new skill set? Mm-hmm. And usually, as I've done this, where we start is really bringing in people within the organization who have actually done the thing,
Mm-hmm.
and just let them talk to the
Yeah.
ACDs, right? So give the ACDs some, like kind of practical and lived experience. Like, this is how, the word resilience, right?
Mm-hmm.
People think that means running through a brick wall.
Mm-hmm.
Resilience defined by these leaders is knowing when to stop before you run through them, right? And then what comes from there? Empathy, compassion, the ability to set boundaries, all the things.
Mm-hmm.
Like in this particular module, a few other things, the ability outside of the ability to be resilient, the ability to really inspire. And what does inspiration really mean?
Yeah.
Is it the ability to play? Is it the ability to, get your teams to, kind of follow you, like defining and getting that clarity,
Yeah.
right? And with that, we kind of did a workshop with UCB, with Upright Citizen Brigade, and brought
Mm.
them in. And how does that look? Being able to do a workshop like that is so fun, because you get people really start to see themselves in new ways and see themselves and define inspiration for what it means for them.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah.
And another organization that I work with, we've recently started doing a pilot with starting to get, again, I mentioned this before, like comfortable with the uncomfortable, and
Mm.
living with and giving everyone a shared kind of language around, okay, you mentioned before, like, all right, I can be a salty creative.
Yeah.
I'm just a creative, but as a leader, there
Mm-hmm.
are other expectations of me. Okay, well, what are those expectations? In addition to defining those expectations, how do we now all, because look, those conversations are going to happen. Somebody's still always going to disagree with the campaign that is being presented, internally, or
Mm-hmm.
a client's going to disagree. It's say, I don't like that. That
Yeah.
doesn't really fulfill the brief.
Yeah.
So defining those things and then giving everyone a shared language. And look, you don't have to agree, but
Mm-hmm.
what does that look like when you don't? And how do
Yeah.
you communicate around that, right? Like, I think it's so funny. I used to say all the time when I was inside, the agency space,
Mm-hmm.
like, we are a communications industry. Like, what are
Yeah.
we don't communicate,
Oh
you
God.
know?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I know that's a whole other, podcast, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like,
No, it's very frustrating at times.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, giving people the ability to be, if you were running after 20 years of weightlifting only, your first thing wouldn't be a marathon, right? Your first day running would be a 15-minute run, probably, if you
Yeah.
could make it that long,
Mm-hmm.
right? So first
Yeah.
out of the gate, you're not doing the marathon, and
Yeah.
expecting that of yourself is setting yourself up for failure. And it's a surefire way to make sure you're not going to do a marathon, right?
Yeah.
What narrative has to be changed? Because expecting yourself to go out the first day that you're running and run the marathon that's the thing that we've got to challenge, not the fact that you can't do the marathon.
Yeah.
Give yourself
Yeah.
some time, you'll get there.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I think part of the reason people feel like they should is because just it's such a high pressure business, right? And so suddenly I'm thrust into this position. I'm an ACD, I'm a CD, I'm whatever. And the other part is what you talked about earlier, which is to just historically, the business just has not done a great job of preparing people and letting them know that
Yeah.
this is what you're going to need to do. These are sort of the expectations, and inviting people into those expectations, and maybe having a little bit of grace. Like, okay, we understand that when you first start running, it's not going to be as pretty as a year from now, but we're here to support you in that. I mean, I think, I'm an older creative, but like when I came up, I can only remember one like 2-hour leadership training that I had in my whole career.
Mm.
And I remember liking it. I was like, this is
Yeah.
cool. And I remember feeling like, oh, they see something in me. That's cool. And then that was it. Everything else I learned was osmosis. It was just like, I kind of like what she's doing. I kind of like what he's doing. But also, a lot of that osmosis is probably not great, meaning I'm absorbing some of the maybe not so good behaviors from those folks and thinking that's the way I'm supposed to show up. You then have to learn the hard way like, you run into that wall and you don't run through it and you get knocked down and somebody goes like, you can't do that.
Yeah, you can't keep doing it.
Okay. But it would have been nice if I had some clue into that. So, I mean, I wonder, and this is why I really like that you're talking to ACDs, because to me, that's where this should really be happening. Like that's where you got a foot in each side. You're kind of the doer and leading, and there's room to experiment and grow there. What are you noticing? I mean, are you noticing agencies opening up to that a little more and recognizing the value? Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, it's so funny. There was a couple of days ago, there was an article, the guru, the Brene Brown, she just wrote a new book about how she started working with organizations.
Yeah.
I think that there's much more look, for all of the things that are happening in the world right now, I have to say, I do think that there is so much more dialogue around what people need
Yeah.
to be successful and to be supported.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, to your point, throughout my career, it was just kind of like, go try it. And like nobody was telling me what to do, you go and do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, generationally, the people who are coming up now are really kind of maybe a little bit more vocal, whatever it is.
Yeah.
There's a little bit more expectation of the employer,
Yeah.
and really just, in terms of like helping people have a dialogue, be set up for success. I mean, I remember we used to cringe at like having to do, performance evaluations and
Mm-hmm.
like there was no mechanism set up for that internally. And now it's like, people are really, demanding it.
Yeah.
In a bad way,
Right.
but really asking for it and saying like, look, I need to understand like what my trajectory looks like here.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit less, which I think is all good. Like there's a little bit less of okay, maybe more acceptance of like, okay, what path am I on? More acceptance of being able to say that. Whereas I think back in the day, perhaps when we were kind of coming up in the business, it was put your head down, work really hard, and you'll get there.
You'll get rewarded eventually.
Yeah.
I like the shift. I'm always amazed when I look back and I go like, I feel like sometimes I was so damn passive about it. Like just, I'm doing the work and I'm counting on the fact that people are going to notice and hopefully like it, and then understand where I want to go, like without me ever having said it. I mean, it was like, it would take like a really like breaking point where you're frustrated and you finally go like, I'm really like to get promoted to this next level. And I'm like, oh, okay, let's talk about it. And it's like, okay, like you were
why didn't I just say it?
Why didn't I just say this like a year ago when I first started thinking it? And so I think it's great that particularly younger folks are thinking about that, because, and I think that then serves you well when you get ready to become a leader. It's like, do I want to become a leader? And then what kind of leader do I want to become and why? Right. So, I'm curious, for you, what are people coming to you with? Like, what are the surface level problems that are most getting people to pick up the phone and go, Karen, I need your help?
Yeah, I need your help. It's so varied. Somebody just asked me this. I was telling them I was coming on your show.
Yeah.
What are you going to talk about? What are you going to say? And they had the very same question. Like, who does, like, why do people call you? Like, what is any one thing? And, sure, imposter syndrome is like, everybody knows and uses that.
Yeah.
But again, it means different things to different people, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that I think people feeling, look, we're all still, I don't care what anybody says, we are all still dealing with the aftermath of COVID.
I agree. Yeah.
It's like, look, it changed the way work is, like the whole system of work going into the office versus virtual working. People now, for better or for worse, some people love it and it's great. And some people don't. But, for better or for worse, some people are working from home exclusively. The gig economy. There's so many,
Hmm.
elements of it. So just say like, oh, well, it's always this. It's really not. And I think what I can say is more often than not is something, most of the people that I work with, it's not only, yes, it's a lot of creatives. The majority of my clients are creatives, but
Yeah.
there are people who are, kind of creative adjacent. It's within creative industry,
Yeah.
really, because there is such a shorthand. And I'm sure that and I would be curious. Yeah, yeah, I'm not surprised, right? Because it's such a shorthand. And I know, and not to diss any of the online platforms that are there that exist in terms of,
Right.
coaching to kind of like the masses, but
Hmm.
the fact that I have gotten, people who have clients who have come to me have said, I went a platform and it didn't really fit because the person that was working with me didn't understand very specific details of
Yeah.
the creative industry that we're in. And
Hmm.
so that has helped. So but yes, imposter syndrome, I would say if there is any one thread,
Yeah.
yeah, I would say imposter syndrome is a
I
is a
believe
key.
that. Yeah, I've definitely had a fair share of that. And then, when it comes to like a company bringing me in,
Hmm.
I think what I find actually is interesting, the things I notice are some folks, they're worried about their work life balance, which is tricky because ultimately, like that is both a company culture solve as well as an individual's ability to manage their own thing. But I've noticed that. And then I think the other one that's shown up for me is, purpose and things like that show up. Like
Values, right?
people feel a little disconnected, disengaged. Like, how can they get engaged? And then I think on the creative leader side, it's like, it is a little bit of what we talked about. It's like, well, who do they get to become as a leader? Because it feels a little blind to them right now. It's fun working with somebody who, I worked with one person who he just kind of defined it. It's like, these are like the 7 or 8 things I want to be doing. And then he kind of created a system of like, how much of this do I want to do? And I thought that was kind of fun.
Wow,
It was like, you
brilliant.
know,
Yeah.
and there was recognition of where there were strengths and where there were opportunities to grow. Like, I think I don't do this so well, but I think it's part of my job. And so how do I do it? And then there's I really don't want to do any of this. How do I manage that? And you can, I mean, you can get help,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I find that really interesting. The other one, I feel like burnout shows up. I feel like the
Yeah.
industry as a
Burnout
whole
stuck. Yeah.
is so burnt out. And that's one where, what do you find helps people like get out of that and find a way back to feeling some of that connection that maybe got them into the industry in the first place?
Yeah, yeah, it's such a good question. Look, I can tell you a couple of times that people have come to me with that, right? And
Yeah.
everybody has their own experience. So this is just a few of the clients that I've helped, who have come to me about feeling burnt out.
Yeah.
And burnout, it can mean again different things to different people, but the common thread with these few clients were I'm burnt out and I got to get the hell out of this industry. I'm done,
Hmm. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and in each case, it wasn't that they were done with the industry. They just lost, the inspiration, the things that made them happy. They were listening to narratives and defining themselves, defining their path, defining in ways that were like, again, like says who. And look, for all of the things that we're saying about, what it was like when we were coming up in the industry and you just put your head down and how we're saying it's, there's other things at play now and people are asking more for it. Thank God, because we have the ability to coach people now.
Yeah.
People are much more comfortable saying, I need help. Anyway, to answer your question, yeah. So the people that came to me with burnout, it wasn't burnout. That was how they were, articulating what they were going through.
Yeah.
But when it came down to it, they didn't want to leave. They weren't ready. And it doesn't mean that somebody else wouldn't really have. But we had to kind of unpack and see what was really going on. And then we could get to the heart of, I had one client in particular who comes to mind right now. She was, done, according to her. She was like, I'm done. I
Yeah.
don't know what I'm going to do next, but no. And she, after a couple of sessions, like realized that she really wasn't. She has other creative endeavors. It's not to say that she doesn't have if you're a creative person, yeah, there
Hmm.
are,
Sure.
things you could go and do and wanted to, kind of get into these other places. But really, at the end of the day, she didn't want to leave the industry. She was afraid to look at what other industries she could get into in terms her craft. So ultimately, what that became for her was going client side,
Yeah.
right? She was done with the structure of what the
Yeah.
industry had become for her
Yeah.
and wanted a completely different experience. That's really what she was looking for.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's really great because the shift of I'm done to, oh, I just
Like,
can't
oh,
go
wait a minute, I
home.
still love what I do.
Yeah. I mean, and opening
Crying. I'm
that
like, I don't
door.
want to leave. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
well, then
And
let's
yeah,
look
then
at,
let's
okay,
figure it
now
out.
what? Right? Like,
Yeah.
now what? Right? Like, we got here.
Hmm.
What are we going to do with this info now?
Yeah. And then that's really cool. That's beautiful. I love when that happens, when somebody can reconnect to like, okay, my heart is still there. Like it's just been caked on with a bunch of gunk. And it's like
Yeah.
you open it up again and then it's like, okay, now where do I want to be? And I think
Yeah.
that's true for a lot of folks. It's like the industry has changed a lot. So where do I
Totally.
fit in? And it could
Hmm.
be maybe I don't like the agency structure. Maybe I want to go in house. It could just be I'm in the like certain agencies that are just structured in a way that I don't like. And I
Hmm.
could go over to this kind of agency. It's a smaller one. It's a bigger one. It's one that like has broken down the model in a different way and
Exactly. I can
gives me
go, be a
opportunity.
freelancer, a consultant, work with, a couple of clients directly. I could go work
Yeah.
in-house with a client, I
Yeah.
can define it my own way. It doesn't have to be right. But again, like, I think at the end of the day, it's really just helping our clients just find that place back to themselves.
Yeah.
Again, not to get too woo-woo or too, but too heady, but like really get back in touch with what really defines it for themselves.
Yeah. 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 Who are you really? And like to uncover that is really cool because you forget it when you're feeling the weight of it. And the thing you mentioned also that I hear a lot is like, I don't know what else I would do.
Mm.
Something that I posted on this a little while back, and I really believe this, and part of me is like, how do we put this out to the world? But for folks who do want to leave advertising, and I think about creatives in particular, but anybody, but there is so much value in a brain that can break apart problems and solve problems the way you do repeatedly as an advertising creative. Like that to me feels like a really transferable skill. But it's not obvious. It's not like I can walk up to, I don't know, like IBM and go, hey, I did this and I would like to do something that's not exactly what I did, but I want to solve problems for you. There's not an obvious path, but I feel like there could be. And like, so I'm curious what your take is on that. Like, it feels such a craft that it's like, where else would I go? But I feel like the creative brain is just like, is actually what we need more of right now.
Well, I was just going to say that. I mean, the creative brain and the ability to problem solve and, the ability to, for coaching, for the ability to work with senior leaders and executives and really help them unblock, what
Hmm.
they might be kind of caking on themselves.
Yeah.
It really does have a business application, right? And I think that, the ability to know, the problem solving, to know how to distill down loads and loads and loads of information,
Hmm.
data, and communicate it in a way that is simple, that is going to, resonate with the masses. That skill set is incredibly transferable. And so again, really, speaking in generalities, it doesn't apply. It really is about the person or the organization and
Yeah.
what it really, how they define what that looks like and
Yeah.
helping them come to the clarity, because once you've got the clarity, then you can start to now plot and plan
Yeah.
and get strategic, right? But without
Mhm.
that clarity, what are you doing,
Yeah.
right? clarity, okay, what does that mean? Okay, well, the clarity comes from knowing the purpose,
Yeah.
knowing the values that define you, right? And that could
Hmm.
be a person or an organization, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Getting that clarity is really, I think, just so important. And then once you can kind of get there, then you can start to weave and connect dots
Yeah.
and you're nodding, so it must be
It
resonating.
totally makes sense to me. And
Yeah.
what I'm thinking about is just that one, it just like get it. And two, it's in a world that moves so fast. The thing that's really beautiful sometimes about coaching and that we get to be a part of is people finally have the space to do that. You're
Mhm.
running a million miles an hour and you finally get to what feels like maybe a breaking point. It's like, I have imposter syndrome, I'm burnt out, I'm whatever. And suddenly you get a chance to actually like just like look at yourself a little bit and go like, who the heck am I and who do I want to be? And then what do I do with that information? I mean, that there is it's not really a light bulb moment. It's more of like a washing over of like, finally, like I get a chance to like look at me and I've been fixing everything around me for so long, you know, it's
And
really like eye opening for people and heart opening, I think.
yeah, yeah. And like you said, it's so beautiful to be able to be a part of that, right? It really is. It's such it's a benefit, a gift,
Yeah.
and things, a lot of times, again, people will kind of create these narratives and say, I'm burnt out, I have imposter syndrome, whatever the case may be. And it's like, well, okay, so, I've backed myself in a corner. I can't, well, who's to say, all right, so you try, you take a risk.
Right. Yeah.
Well, then I'm going to fail. All right, so,
And then, yeah.
and then what?
Yeah.
Well, and what happens if you don't fail?
Right.
Then what? Then, right?
Mm, yeah.
It's like it's such a gift to be able to be part of it and to help people through this process and to see the business applications of it too is just it's so empowering.
Yeah.
And I feel very lucky and very fortunate to be a part of it.
Yeah. Me too. Because you've got the background also in the talent development side, I'm curious to get your take on like if you sort of knocked down the agency structure and you were going to rebuild it from scratch, how much do you think it would look like the structure that exists at most agencies right now?
Oh, dear God. Right now?
Yeah.
No, no, no. Not right now. No. I mean, I think in many ways, there would be elements. It doesn't mean I would like go like light
Yeah.
the whole industry on fire
Right.
and start over. I do think what's really interesting when I have kind of ventured out and done, there was a period of time that I kind of let the agency structure and went, client side
Yeah.
and, incorporating a lot of the things and the kind of systems, let's call it, within advertising. We know what we know really, like we do what we do really, really, really well. What we don't do well, I think, is in terms of like supporting people, giving them the training and the development and bringing
Hmm.
people. And I think,
Yeah.
that's where we could do a lot more. And thankfully, we are starting to do a lot more. But again, like I think there are elements of being able to problem solve, being able to, distill down very complex situations
Hmm.
really, really easy and digestible
Hmm.
pieces of communication. There's so many things that the industry does do well. However, there's a lot of things about the agency structure that I think could really, really benefit from a little bit of a zhuzh, if you will. Yeah, yeah. But there's so much about it that, again, we do what we do really well. And then the things that we don't, we really could use a little help as an industry. And again, I feel very fortunate in the role that I have now, being able to work with
Yeah.
creative organizations and creative staff and creative adjacent staff and really help people see their way to success get out of, get out of their own way in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's a big thing, right? And I think that's the really fun perspective is that if you've been in it, but now you're sort of outside, you can see it with fresh eyes in a way that when you're really in it, it becomes hard. Like suddenly, like everybody's looking through the same glasses once you've been in a place for a few years. And so to kind of come in and go, that's a little weird. Like, just so you know, that seems a little weird. What do you think? Like,
Yeah. Have you guys noticed this is what you're doing? Like, do you even
yeah,
realize
yeah.
that
And
this
it might
is what
not,
you're doing? Do you hear
right?
the words you're saying right now?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that can be really, really helpful too. What do you think is one change somebody can make right now to make work better for themselves?
Hire a coach.
Yes. Well, I will agree with that.
Yeah.
What do you
Yeah.
think work's going to look like in 5 years?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think it will be hopefully a little bit of a lot of the same
Yeah.
in terms of the hybrid schedule.
Hmm.
I don't think it's ever going to go back to the
Yeah.
100% in office.
Yeah.
I do think, again, to my point before about community and building community, I think that there's a lot to be said for having that community around you.
Sure.
So I do think that a hybrid situation, in and out is the way to go. How will work look? I think that this vernacular around development and learning and giving people the tools they need to succeed, I think that's just going to become more and more. And I think, back in the day too, I think it used to be something that was exclusively used for only the upper echelon.
Yeah.
Only the C-suite or only
Hmm.
the executive staff or only the
Yeah.
senior leaders
Hmm.
organizations. And I think that is becoming more of a thing that you coaching and development is becoming more of a thing that the whole organization is kind of embracing
Yeah.
or that leadership is embracing for the entire organization, let's say.
Yeah. I see some of that.
So that is what I think. I do think, this whole gig economy, and I think that that's going to continue. I think that, people really like having their independence and their ability to,
Hmm.
define things for themselves.
Yeah.
At least for a time. I think it'll continue for a bit.
Yeah.
And I also think it's a great time for creatives and creative people, right? Again,
Hmm.
just mean, and yes, of course, that means art and copy and design,
Yeah.
but I also think it means the strategists,
Hmm.
the people who know the shorthand and
Yeah.
know how to take a very complex situation and apply it to something and apply, problem solving and really, really good, swift communication to those complex problems, I think that is where the future is going.
Yeah. And to that point, I would say, I feel like if there's something I would change about agencies, we feel sometimes very tactical. Like I'm doing 27 Facebook ads and I'm doing this, and maybe occasionally I get to refresh a campaign. But the upstream stuff, the more strategic stuff that maybe consultants are doing, the solving the business problems that everybody's like, I want to solve business problems. And then it's like, okay, make me 3, carousels for Instagram. It's like, okay, well, that's sort of solving a business problem. I get it. But I want to go 2 steps earlier. Like what is going on at the business that we can help you think creatively about that you might shift in terms of the way maybe you operate or the way you ultimately communicate. But before we decide that we're going to do a Facebook post or whatever, like get big picture about it. And I think we're so at that right now. And you see like the squeeze on our rates and all that stuff. And I think the way to avoid that might be to get a little bit upstream. And I think like we have the people in the room to do this. To your point, that's what I'm hearing there. It's like we have these strategic minds, creative minds, smart client people who can like listen to a lot of stuff from a client and kind of go, okay, I know who you are and I know who you need to be. Like all of that stuff is like the superpower for now. But I
Yeah.
feel like we're like kind of like the you use 10% of your brain. I'm like, I think we're not using all of our collective brain, and I'd love to see more of that. But it starts by acknowledging like the talent in the room and how we're capable of more maybe than we're currently offering. I mean, what do you think of that?
Yeah, and I think that ability to be involved upstream,
Yeah.
again, like it really is about, when you distill that down, it really does start to become about open dialogue, communication, as
Mm.
opposed to the tactical, like just do this,
Yeah.
this, right? It
Yeah.
really is about, being more collaborative, being
Hmm.
upstream, being
Yeah.
involved as a group in a community
Hmm.
together in the process, as opposed to just, being a vendor, go, make these three things for us. This is what we want, you know. And I do think that this approach to call it gig economy, call it however you want to define that, it is really a great time in terms of the ability to really get creatives in the room and creatively minded people in the room with the client,
Yeah.
uh, as opposed to, just thinking about like numbers on a spreadsheet, hitting, numbers, tracking there's
Hmm.
look, I understand that's, part of it too, but when it only gets so heavily weighted on that side, and you start to lose the thread, you lose the narrative. Like, well, what are we really here to do? What is the point? Let's get down to it. And again, giving people the ability, giving the people that we work with, our clients, the ability to take some risks and maybe
Yeah.
say that earlier in the process as opposed to later,
Hmm.
voicing it in a professional, of course, way, not being a salty person, but having that open dialogue and
Yeah.
being authentic. I think all of those things really do help lend themselves to better problem solving, more collaborative, work environments. Having that shared language creates, safety and the
Hmm.
ability to just communicate better.
Yeah.
I think that is hopefully, maybe I'm an optimist, but I do think that that's hopefully what work will look like more in 5, 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a bit of an optimist myself, so I would say I think we can get there. I love the thing you said of just kind of like what are we even doing here? Kind of like to put creative minds in a room with executives who might actually be wondering, what am I even doing here? Meaning they work so hard and they get there, and then it's kind of like, all am I doing is just looking at those spreadsheets and telling my people to make them look better.
Yeah.
Like, is that really my job? Because I thought I would be, in a vision place and really like doing great things, and to have somebody who could come into that room and kind of go like, that's screwed up. Why aren't you thinking about that? Do you realize like this company could actually do this? Hmm.
Right.
And and getting people to like remember again, like, why am I even doing this? Why did I want to become a CEO? Was it to be a manager of spreadsheets and tactics?
Yeah. A
Maybe,
number
maybe.
cruncher.
I mean, maybe
Like
for some
maybe.
people,
Yeah.
but like for a lot of people, I think it was different. And to get those views in the room I think it's like just a little shake it up once in a while,
Mhm.
like, yeah. So I've asked you a lot of questions, Karen. I want to give you a chance to ask a question to our audience. Do you have something you'd like to pose to them?
Yeah, yeah, thank you. I would love to know, what does a desuckified workplace look like? What does it look like? What do you need to be unsuckified at work? You know, how would they define a workplace that is unsuckified, if you will?
Yeah,
You know?
that's a good one. I mean, I feel like I've heard some things, but there's lots of different takes on that.
Mm.
What I don't like is not the same as what somebody else doesn't like, and what I want is not always the same. Yeah. And I'm going to sort of put this question back on you, but if you could wave a magic wand and make the world of work less sucky, de-suckified, however we want to call it, what what would you sprinkle in there to make it better for everybody?
Well, let's see. I think that the ability to just relate to one another in a way that, yeah, if I could wave a magic wand, just like, get rid of all the bravado and like just
Hmm.
we're people,
Yeah.
like at the end of the day, just having a little bit more humanity. And look, myself included, like back in the day, I'm sure there were moments that like, and I'm not, I'm human, right? Like there's going to be times when you have a bad day or you had a job that like, oh God, I can't believe I did that. Like,
Yeah.
have those moments, right?
Hmm.
But we're all human. So, the permission and the forgiveness and what does the humanity look like,
Hmm.
in work? I think and also I think too, for me, the leaders that I've wanted to follow have been the leaders that have brought that, to
Hmm.
the workplace.
Yeah.
Those have been the people that I've wanted to follow.
Yeah.
So I think that, that to me has always been, or now if I'm kind of like defining or how I would define that, I would say, like the humanity, like what does a humanity look like at work?
Yeah. Just, I mean, when you just said like, hey, we're human, it's like we forget that. We plug ourselves into the work system and we suddenly think we're sort of part of this machine and we see other people
Or
as
you see
just
people as like their
their
title,
title. You're
Yeah.
just the account person. You're just the strategist, or I'm just the creative. And then we attach all kinds of stuff to that
We
and
can,
create,
we can.
and again, like that is human, but it's like, it's very two dimensional the way we often act at work. And like what I hear from you is like, let's be three dimensional.
Let's be
Yeah.
three-dimensional. And
Yeah.
look, that's not to say, a lot of times I'm talking or working with a client and it's like, look, I'm not suggesting that it's all rainbows and
Yeah.
unicorns.
Yeah.
And, not to say that like, oh, well, she's human, so she can
Right.
be, or he can be toxic or rude or mean or cut me down. Oh, they're human. So just, no, I
Yeah.
don't mean that. I don't
Yeah.
mean it in that way. Sometimes you can speak or you could say something and it means different things to different people. But what I mean by that and how I would define that is maybe just a bit more empathy and also being able to hold a boundary, right? Like if someone
Mm-hmm.
is being toxic or
Yeah.
treating in a bad way, have the language,
Mm-hmm.
give the employees the language to and the safety at work to know like
Yeah.
this is not tolerated.
Yeah.
This is how we share, unhappiness with a campaign, an idea, or whatever.
Yeah.
But once it crosses this line, then you're getting into territory that, is not tolerated. And we stand for these values and really live those values.
Yeah.
And what does that mean to somebody? What does that mean
Yeah.
to the organization as an employee? We
Mm-hmm.
expect things of you. But yeah, shared humanity. I mean, I think the world can use that
Yeah.
or
Big
needs
time.
that maybe a little bit. Maybe, or is anybody in DC listening to this? Sorry, I don't mean to go. Whoops. Sorry, I don't mean to go political right
We'll
now.
try to pass this along because I think you're right. I think a little more sense of humanity, shared humanity, empathy, grace, but also just that, like, you mentioned the shared values, and it's like those are not just words on the wall and on the website. Like the idea that you can actually part of being sort of onboarded at a company is like these are sort of the cultural norms here. These are the values we live by, and here's how you can step into them. So it's not just like big words. It's like
that's it. Yeah.
this is what empathy means here. This is what humanity means here. Yeah, and that's
And you can see that I'm getting really excited about it.
yeah.
I'm working with a client right now. We are taking their values
Mm-hmm.
and we're running a workshop.
Yeah,
And we're part of the
I love
work.
that.
I mean, it's not, part of that workshop will be, here's the values. This is what I'm doing well, me as
Mm-hmm.
an employee,
Yeah,
in terms of those values. And here's where I need to, do a little bit better.
yeah.
And it's not just a self-assessment, it's a conversation after
Mm-hmm.
everybody does that assessment. And everyone, granted, it's a small organization, but it's an organization.
Yeah,
Everyone in the room is going to have a discussion about that.
yeah.
Right. And I hand it to those leaders of the organization.
That's
The owners
awesome.
of the organization, they are willing to take that on.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Not everyone is, and that's a big step. So I love seeing that. So one of the things I like to do on the show before we wrap up is have a little fun with sound effects. If you've listened to my show, you'll hear cats meowing and things like that.
Yeah.
And I always invite our guests to create a sound that will show up somewhere in the intro to the show. So what's your De-Suckified sound effect, Karen?
Oh my God. Well, it's like if you were telling me do a De-Suckified face, I think, that for me, like the impersonations and that kind of thing has always been my like wheelhouse,
Okay.
comedy wheelhouse. But yeah, if I was gonna say Desuckified sound effect, I would probably do something of like, do you remember when Rachel Dretch, she did like the Debbie Downer, like like the tuba in the background, like that would be the that would be the sound effect.
She was
Sometimes like
funny.
I'll kind of like do like the eye roll or like the one eye, to my husband.
Okay.
I'd be like, don't you Dretch me. He's like, I
Yeah.
see you Dretching me. Don't do it. Can't help it.
I
So,
love that. She had such the perfect face for
oh my
that
God, she's so funny.
character.
And that Debbie Downer, oh, are you kidding? Like
Uh,
it's
that was hilarious. Yeah. Well, I almost now have to ask, like, what would be your desuckified face?
oh God, my Desuckified face. Well, I don't know Desuckified face, but there is one thing that like if I'm ever having a bad day,
Yeah.
I don't, did you ever it just always makes me laugh. The Melissa McCarthy, like the bloopers from This Is 40.
Okay.
That's This Is 40's bloopers at the end.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it is so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll leave you with that.
All right. I will check that out. Invite everybody to check it out. And then,
Yeah.
of course, the last thing I like to ask people is how do people find you online, learn more about the
Ah,
coaching
thank
work you're
you.
doing, or check out your Substack, all that stuff?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think that might be how you found me,
Yeah,
through Substack,
I
right? So
did.
yeah, a Substack. I also, I'm on LinkedIn, Karen Crane.
Hmm.
I have a website, coachkarencrane.com. Also, if anybody liked anything that I mentioned about Brunch Time Stories, the female leadership platform and initiative that I have, co-founded with Carrie Jones, and then the One Club for Creativity. We have Coaching for Creativity that I founded with Rob Schwartz. Those two initiatives, you can find me through those. And then also, if anybody liked what I had to say today and want to try to desuckify work for
Yeah.
themselves or desuckify work for their employees, I would love to talk to them.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to put all of that in the show notes so people know how to do
Thank
all
you.
those good things. And
Thank you, TJ. This has
I,
been so fun.
I really appreciate this conversation, Karen. I felt
Me
like
too.
it was fun and I learned a lot. And I think a lot of folks will learn a lot from it too. So thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you. It's been a pleasure. I really appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you, TJ. Bye.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to the Desuckify Work podcast. And a huge thanks to Karen for bringing curiosity and creative insights to the show. You can follow Karen on LinkedIn and check out her Substack newsletter at karencrane.substack.com. It's filled with awesome stuff. If you enjoyed the conversation and would like to help your teams bring their absolute best to work, I invite you to schedule a free half-hour discovery session. Type meow in the calendar invite, and I'll also send you a free Desuckify Work t-shirt. Bye, everyone.